and he would not want to live through what Barcelona fans lived through yesterday. That was too much for my blood pressure, and I have no stake in that game.
Well, PSG take on Arsenal today in the second leg of the remaining Champions League semi-final. PSG come in with just a 1-goal advantage, so you really can't write Arsenal out of this one. Now let's take a listen to what Arsenal's Declan Rice had to say ahead of today's matchup.
Yeah, I think you need to have full belief. We certainly have that as a group. The manager certainly drills that into us every single day. I think if we're the best versions of ourselves tomorrow night, and we know we can be that, there's no stopping us getting into that final. We really need to be positive. You can't come into a semi-final away at Paris and not have that belief and, courage that you're going to come here and win the game. So, yeah, we're ready and we're looking forward to it. It's going to be a really special night to be a part of.
Anita, when you look at the whole European picture and everything that you're living in your day-to-day in London, what do you think it would mean for English football to potentially have Arsenal in a final, to potentially have Manchester United and Spurs in a final, and to have Chelsea in a Conference League final?
I think football over in England, at least, let me say, is very fragmented. So there's a lot of hate watching going on. A lot of people were very happy with the result last week, other than, I'd say, mostly Arsenal fans, or maybe Arsenal fans who aren't happy with the current regime. So in terms of what it will do, I think you'll have a lot of unhappy people who aren't Arsenal fans, to be honest. In terms of what it says about the brand as a Premier League, I'm torn because you mentioned the Europa League final. Look at where Manchester United and Tottenham are in the table at the moment. Neither of them have hit the magic 40 points, which we have considered as the benchmark to secure Premier League status for the following season. So I don't know if that kind of undermines everything. Of course, Arsene Wenger came out a few days ago saying that the winner of the Europa League shouldn't get guaranteed entry to the Champions League. It should be for that same competition. So I'm torn as to what it says about the quality of the teams that maybe they're facing in those lower competitions. In the Champions League, without a doubt, Arsenal has come up against some of the best, and that, of course, continues this evening.
You talk with Mikel Arteta just about every week. What is his approach and what is he saying about how to get the attack going before tonight's match?
He's been quite coy. What he has said is that obviously there's belief that they can win it. I think for everyone, it was so obvious that they would have to change their system and approach with Partey not being available through suspension in that first leg. He's such a key player, and that impacted the likes of Declan Rice, who we saw in that quarterfinal against Real Madrid just be that £100 million defender. And so he wasn't able to get up front and play in that number 8 role that he seems to be thriving in. And then that had a knock-on effect on Merino as well, who's become this striker in 2025 for Arsenal. So I think in terms of the approach, what we saw at the weekend against Bournemouth, albeit not a good result whatsoever, that is probably the team that would start, bar maybe Timber, if he is fit enough.
Anita, you touched on Partey and how that frees up everybody else to advance into the attack. Can you talk about what other qualities that brings defensively to Arsenal again in this match?
Partey is really good at not letting the opposition get those second balls, and you could see PSG had a lot of enjoyment with that and were able to advance a lot more towards the Arsenal goal. He is so key in neutralising that area and just calming things down. In fact, Declan Rice in this pre-match press conference spoke about just the levels he's at, and he doesn't think people quite appreciate it. So he brings a wealth of experience, just that coolness. Obviously, he didn't really show it in the second leg against Real Madrid, getting that yellow card, which resulted in his suspension. But it's just really interesting to see how he enables Declan Rice to get forward, and then Merino to be even more forward to be that striker for Arsenal.
I think we're envisioning Arsenal and all the tools that they have to possibly get to the final. But on the flip side, what if they don't make the finals? My question: what's the narrative going to be like around this team that walks away trophyless this season?
I think it's one thing to measure the voices on social media. It's another to talk to the fans. And I was with a lot of fans on the train. The Eurostar takes you from central London through to the centre of Paris, and they are happy with what Arteta has done. I'm talking about the fans that go week in, week out, season ticket holders, right? Because Arsenal tickets are becoming almost like gold dust. It's very hard to get them in spite of doing what the second place two-peat in the previous 2 seasons. We don't know if that will be the case this season. But so I think in terms of what Mikel has achieved, people say, well, he hasn't got a major trophy. I believe the feeling I get from the fans that go week in, week out to the Emirates, they are happy with him. But like I said, there's a whole other world on social media who I feel aren't happy. They're very vocal. We all know how it is when it comes to social media hits. The more negative you are, the more attention you get. Of course, a lot of noise has been made about Martin Ødegaard, the captain. I believe, or at the end of the season, we'll probably find out that he's still been playing through an injury because he just doesn't look as confident. And he's been under a lot of attack. In fact, Declan Rice was asked about it, and he said no one questions him. That you may not see the character that he shows us behind closed doors and in the dressing room, but he thinks he's one of the best and he deserves to be there. But yeah, a lot of questions will be asked, rightly so. Like, why didn't they bring a striker in last summer? This window, they have to do it, you know? A lot of noise, especially from people who aren't Arsenal fans too. So I think Mikel will be okay, but the voices against him and his project will probably be a lot louder than what we've seen before.
Well, one player who made a lot of noise at the Emirates is Ousmane Dembélé. Comes off the field and looks to be available and back for PSG in this second leg. What do you think his impact is going to be? Where do you foresee his impact?
The guy is frightening. Goodness, at the Emirates, you know, I think, Nico, we spoke about this. You asked me what the atmosphere was like. And because he got that early goal, it just silenced the crowd. It took a lot of the energy out of the fans because Arsenal haven't conceded in that way in a long time. Every time he got on the ball, or some of the other attacking players, or even their fullbacks like Achraf Hakimi, you just felt like they were able to create something out of nothing. I'm very nervous, I won't lie. After what we saw yesterday, I know for the neutral, that game was just fantastic. And for a fan, you would not want to live through what Barcelona fans lived through yesterday. That was too much for my blood pressure, and I have no stake in that game.
This is at the bottom of our priority list. This woman is in Paris to cover a huge game. So, Anita, ignore these two. You go enjoy the game today. We'll be watching the coverage on the show, guys. That will be on Paramount Plus later today. Kickoff is at 3 p.m. PSG taking on Arsenal. Coverage begins at 2 p.m. Eastern.